So when I was very little, my bedroom went out into the backyard. Carrie did not have a door that went into the backyard. I did. And I went out in the backyard, and for some reason, there was a bird nest that had fallen out of the bush near my door, and there was a bird's nest there. And I had picked up the eggs, and I damaged the eggs when I was moving the eggs in the nest around. Now, I didn't knock it out of the tree, but my mother came in and saw that I had damaged these eggs in this nest. And Charlotte from Charlotte's Web came out and started explaining the cycle of life and the eggs and how the parents were going to be looking for those eggs in that nest and how I'd just broken this family apart. And I was in tears from the storytelling, which one could call a lecture. So my mother never, ever hit me, except one time. But this, generally speaking...
Was it a swat?
The lectures were far more intense than any beating you could ever get, because she was very articulate and a great storyteller, and she could make you feel so bad. Great way to correct somebody. The only time I ever was hit by my mother, she did it with the back of her hand as a slap, and I've told this story before. I'll tell it to the benefit of the person that asked the question.
Just don't say the word.
Yeah, I guess I should.
No, don't say the word.
Don't say the word, but
yes.
I guess I should.
No, don't say the word. This is a family show, and we have Christian people in the room too, so please have some respect.
Do you think Carrie would not tell the story? I mean, not say the word? All right, I'll abbreviate. So John Courtney was my best friend. He was over. I was over at John's house, and we were in his room, and we were probably, I don't know, 10 years old maybe. His room was a wreck, and his mother came in and said, "John, you've got to clean your room. I mean, it's a disaster." He said, "Oh, F you," to his mother. I was startled.
That is startling.
And she walked out, and she just walked away, shined him on. And I said to John, "Oh, man," I said, if I ever said that to my mother, that would be the end of my life. Possibly that could just be it. And he said, "Oh, no, you're totally wrong. You could easily get away with it." I said, no. So we had this little debate, and then we came up with a bet. So we got on our bicycles. Now, he lived right next to Lucio Ball's house. He lived on Roxbury, right next to Miguel Ferrer, in fact. So we drove our bicycles all the way back up Whittier Drive, all the way to Greenway. We get in the house. My mother is sitting at the Greenway dining room table getting ready for a party, and she has all of her expensive, things like this out on the table, and crystal and glasses, and she's planning what is the mix of stuff going to be. And I walk up and I just stand next to her, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get into this, because how do you she's not asking me to clean my room, so I got to come up with something. And so at a certain point, I just was looking at her, and she looked at me and she says something like, like, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "Oh, F you." Without even looking at me, she backhanded me. And to demonstrate, I got hit, and I kind of went, and then I looked over at John Courtney and I went, and he was hiding in the pantry. And so I mouthed the word, "See, I told you." And
this was John Courtney?
To John Courtney.
Who went on to have a huge career at CNN. So right. Isn't that interesting? Because you were just kids.
Well, but John, John was one of the people always working with we were making movies and things together when we were little, the little films that we've talked about in the past. And he was one of the people on the back lots with me, would come to my parties, and was exposed to that through us. His father was actually an executive at Four Star, which was a production company at that time. And so he had a connection to the industry. He worked his way up to the ranks at CNN, but Turner, I think, first. He was with Turner, I believe, first. So anyway, point is, though, it was interesting because John, obviously didn't have the discipline that I had, but it didn't have to get exercised. And my mother never hit Carrie either. The way the discipline was administered was through lectures and rules. Carrie had more rules than I did. I've told the story before of Carrie at the dining room table. She would come and she would be singing.
Yes, And your mother would tell her
And my mother
not
would
to
then
sing.
say, look, we're going to have a rule, no singing at the dining room table. And Carrie was like, nobody has rules like that. That's like un-American. I mean, how could you have a rule that you can't sing at the dining room table? Especially you, a performer. This is impossible. And my mother would roll her eyes and sing. So that answers that question, I think.
So